Hello, everyone. Excuse me. I am Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel. Going to take a little bit to drag some people in here because I am starting early, a little bit of a pre-show. But let me check in YouTube there and see how things are going. So, update, refresh, everything like that. I do see Kay Landers hanging out there in the chat. Don't know if you're still around, Kay Landers, but good to see you. And quite a few likes already as people are prepping and getting ready. So take a few minutes for folks to trickle on in. I did say I'd be going pre-show. So the book study starts at 9 o'clock, and that is our Red Harvest. Are you opening up that book for the Star Wars EU book study? And I'll bring Al in at that time. And I said I'd be going pre-show around 8:30, but I was here a few minutes earlier. Figured we'd vamp for a bit, get some folks in, because I don't think the notifications really go out until you actually go live. So that's how that works. But let me just check on a couple things here. That's good. That's good. All right. Looks like Daniel Heron. You've got a pre-show, Daniel Heron. You have a pre-show. Are you so excited? And Daniel with the really cool lettering. Another Daniel. Welcome. Melissa Harris and Sons. Welcome, welcome. And we'll chat for a little bit. One of the things I want to do for this pre-show, or the main thing I want to talk about, though, is to give a review of the Batman fan film that everyone's talking about. The Bat and the Sons Productions, Dying is Easy. We'll talk about that in a few minutes when we get some folks notified and entering in. Samuel Proctor says, usually I've bought the audiobook for these EU streams. This time I'll just sit back and listen in. Understandable. I will say if you're an audiobook listener, though, Red Harvest is read by the great John Glover, and it is phenomenal. I mean, his reading, I mean, John Glover, this is, Lionel Luther himself, it's pretty sweet. So, a sweet audiobook if you're an audiobook person, but, listening in is fine too. No worries. So far, so good. Sorry, just checking on things, making sure everything is set up here. Now, the irony, of course, is if I had labeled this stream Batman Dying is Easy Talk, tons of people would be here ready to spit out there. It was amazing, art sucked, or whatever, all over top of me and everything. But I wanted to do it as a pre-show. That way I can just cut it out and set it as its own video. And then I haven't really put my finger on what the average fan response is to the movie. I've seen a lot of people just loving it 100%. Some people hating it. Some people not even be able to get through it. We'll talk about it in a second, though, once people pop in. But Melissa Harris says, people getting mad at you for speaking out against DC Comics. Oh, the forced propaganda and everything. Yeah. Yeah, his pandering. Hello, Schooner Tuna. Welcome, sir. And yeah, cool. We'll tell you guys tomorrow. I'm still planning on doing this. I haven't set the stream up yet because I don't know if it's definitely going to happen, but I'm really 99% sure I'm going to do it. But around 9 p.m. tomorrow night, I'll be doing another live stream. Fan Man won't be available for his show, and I'll just do a short stream, but I want to talk about some comic books that I found. I mentioned this a little bit at the end of my Knights of the Old Republic study, or playthrough the other night. How I want to start talking about some bands and whatnot. That's why you got the bass and everything set up behind me and stuff. I was doing some prep work in here for it, but Revolutionary Comics, Hard Rock Comics, released a bunch of comic books, biographical comic books back in the 80s and 90s about some of these bands that I loved. I collected them, and I'll show you through some of them and everything like that. But I figured that'd be a cool way to turn, gain some new territory, because I really wanted to talk about Van Halen when poor Eddie passed away. They were such a big band for me, and I'll be able to talk about cultural icons through the same lens of my channel, mythological, looking at our cultural myths, because we do mythologize certain celebrities and whatnot. So it'll be fun. So tune in tomorrow night for that. Get a fan going on me here. All right. So tell me in the chat, have you all seen the Batman fan film, Dying is Easy? It's on the Bat and the Sun Productions YouTube channel. It's been shared everywhere. People were sharing it to the Professor Geek group, I know. And again, I've seen some conflicting reports on it or whatever. I'll give you my basic review here in a second. Tone Loves her says, hello, saw Superman versus the Elite movie. It's just felt, oh, Superman versus the Elite is amazing. In fact, that's probably my second favorite Superman film next to Superman 78. Yeah, it's an amazing film. Amazing film. I'm not so crazy about the character designs. Um, just that's just my aesthetic, my taste. It's nothing objective there. But no, it's good. It's good stuff. So, but yeah, I'd like to know who's seen or at least heard of this Batman Dying Is Easy, Bat in the Sun. So, Bat in the Sun, they've done some great stuff before. They've done some great fan films. Some stuff that I didn't care for, but some really great stuff. They do usually crowdfunded projects, so it's another example of how even in filmmaking we can start making our own stuff, and that's it's a great example of that. So yeah, let me check the time. I just don't want to start before. Oh, we're past 8:30. I can go ahead and get started. Okay, I just mentioned that I was going to start the review at 8:30, so I didn't want to start before that. Should anybody pop in. Crispy, welcome, Crispy. Haven't seen you run in a while, Crispy. Haven't seen the Batman is Dying Easy. It's on YouTube for free. Just look up Batman Dying Is Easy. It'll pop up. It's about a 25-minute, given credits and all. It's about 25 minutes, and it's a fan film. And Bat in the Sun Productions they do a good job in terms of they're all good at their profession. It doesn't look like somebody just took a cell phone outside and tried to record a movie or anything like that. They do have for fan films, for that kind of level, for the budgets that they have to work with, it looks pretty professional. So for Bat in the Sun Productions, Batman Dying Is Easy, I have good things to say about it, and then I have some criticisms. So I have some praises and some criticisms, and I'll start with the praises. And again, I know that people seem divided on this. That's just in terms of the circles that I've been in. I've seen some divided reactions to it. As I said, production quality and all of that's not really something that I can gauge. I was very impressed, like I said, from a fan film perspective, the budgets that they have to work with, as I am with most of their productions. It's like, wow, that's really good. Like I said, it's not somebody just taking their little phone out into an alley and recording somebody, pretending to be Batman or anything like that. It's good. It's good. So, Crispy, yeah, wow, you recognize an Ibanez sound gear. Good man. Yeah. Sound gears are my favorite. I started out playing a Washburn, and once I went sound gear Ibanez, I never went back. I just love these. Love the tones you can get out of them. Love the condensed neck, and stuff. It's really sweet. So, okay, let's start with the praises from Batman Dying Is Easy. I'll say this, except for one action that I saw, one thing that Batman does in this, except for that one thing, this absolutely is the iconic Batman in character. This is how he would react, the things he would do. Now, you have to watch until the very end to get that, because I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but there is a twist and turn, and occasionally you might see him do something you're thinking, what? But he's doing it because of this or that or whatever. You get it in the end. So I will say, by the end of it, except for one little thing he did, this is absolutely the iconic character of Batman there. It really is. And I really like that. That was cool. Wolfden Media says, oh, rest in peace to the guy who played the Joker in that short film. You say rest in peace? So he passed away? Is that what you're talking about, Wolfden Media? Oh, with Batman versus Alien. Oh, a different one. Okay. You tripped me up there. Not in this film, but the guy who played the Joker in Batman versus Alien. Yeah, that was another Bat in the Sun Productions film. Yeah, it was good. So, other good things about the Batman Dying Is Easy. The villains, and not just the villains, but Harvey Bullock and Jim Gordon. They really did look comic book accurate. Well, comic book, that's like, what age are you talking about? What comic books do you mean accurate? I would say they obviously drew a lot of influence in this film from the Batman Arkham games. Definitely did that, and you can tell, but it's like those in turn drew their influence from the comics, so Ivy, Harley, the Riddler, even Killer Croc. I was shocked when you saw Killer Croc's claws. I was like, oh, surely they're not going to show his face, because how could they do that and not look cheesy? But it actually looked like, whoa, that looked good. It was 10 times better than Suicide Squad Croc. It was wonderful. So the look of Arkham Asylum, that is absolutely, it's straight out of the Batman Arkham Asylum game. It really is. I even like the guy playing Hugo Strange, even though he approached the character very differently. It was like very much a younger kind of Hugo Strange, you know, in mannerisms and stuff. He still had the look, and I didn't mind a younger take. You know, that's fine. That didn't kill it for me at all. Like I said, Harvey Bullock, the character, looked like him. It was perfect. Um, Barbara Gordon, even you see some cameos of her, pictures of her anyway, but you see a little bit of live action stuff. You even see Catwoman at the very end. If you wait until after the credits, you see a Catwoman clip, like a little hidden Easter egg there. Very cool, very cool. I really appreciated, you know, I've already said that this Batman, except for one act that he does, is the iconic Batman in character, and I really appreciated how far they went with that. That he truly does care about people. He is out to save people. He's not out to punish criminals. He's out to save the innocent. That really, and you have to watch until the very end. You have to watch until the very end. And again, except for one instance, one little behavior, one act that he does, but he really is out to save people. I love that, especially once you hear his motives for all this kind of stuff that he's doing by the end. You know, it opens up with him saving one of Mad Hatter's victims. And that's great. You know, one of his Alice's. And the Mad Hatter character was really cool. He came out with the hat on, you know, it's low budget. So you could tell they kind of prematurely grayed his hair or whatever, you know, it's not Hollywood quality, you know, on the budget level or anything like that. But yeah, I was just really impressed with the supervillains. Very impressed with that. And very impressed with the overall arc of Batman in his motivations, the tensions, the things that he wanted and stuff like that. That was perfect. Really loved that. Even like the look inside of Arkham Asylum, you're not going to see much of it, you know, but this did look like the cells, you know, I could see that. You know, again, low budget. I think this is kind of in between. It's in between a praise and a criticism. I think I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they really tried to make Gotham City look dark and gothic. I would have preferred much more. There were a lot of scenes, either an establishing shot in the beginning, which they darkened the frame and you know, they did their best. But there's a scene at the end in which Batman, or close to the end or whatever, when Batman's just kind of looking out over the city, and you see like an apartment building right in front of him that's kind of a lighter brick color, like a beigeish or whatever. No, that's not what Gotham looks like. Gotham should look gothic. It should look like an otherworldly city. It shouldn't just look like Chicago. That's one thing that Nolan did, which just was garbage. I hated the way Nolan approached Gotham City. I did like the high-rise trains that he put in there, you know, but that's a thing, you know. That was cool. And this Batman Dying is Easy does put the little high-rise train in there. Cool. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they couldn't afford some of the you know, some of the special effects to make it look a little bit more gothic, a little bit more like a Tim Burton, Anton Furst Gothic City, you know, because Anton Furst, the production designer, won a huge, you know, he won awards for his Gotham City in those in that first Tim Burton movie. And it's wonderful because it's that amalgamation of like a New York City with this otherworldly gothic, you know, and that's what it was supposed to be, because it's kind of cool that New York City itself inspired both Gotham City and Metropolis. And Gotham City took the Gothic architecture and the sort of the nighttime of New York City with the Gothic and overdid that, overblown it, you know, into what became Gotham City. Whereas Metropolis took all the Art Deco and sort of the hopeful, you know, looking toward the future of the 20s, you know, into the 50s and whatnot of New York City, and overblew that and made it Metropolis. And that's absolutely, I mean, Gotham City and Metropolis are very much characters in their own right in any good proper telling of a DC universe. So I wanted to see more of a gothic Gotham City. There are some scenes in which it just looked like any old city at nighttime, and I didn't like that. But you know, we'll see what they see. You know, what they were doing with their budget or whatever. So I've said all the good things about it, and after I give you the negatives, I'll wrap it up and kind of like, so what would I say to somebody who said, should I see it or not? You know, another one that's kind of a good transitional point is the Batmobile. I feel like the Batmobile, they were trying to, I think, I hate it when people say I feel like, and then they say something that they think. It's like, you didn't feel that, you thought it. Sorry. But I think that, I imagine that they might have been trying to please too many people with their design of the Batmobile. It is certainly inspired somewhat by the Bat tank in Arkham Knight. You can definitely see some influences of Zack Snyder's Batmobile, which is garbage. And you can see some influences though, which I did like. They did put the big over characterized fins on it, like the Tim Burton. I didn't need to see the Tim Burton Batmobile. Okay, that's not what I need. Even though that's my favorite, I didn't need to see that. But I did want to see something that didn't look so tank-like. And this one had the extra wheels in the back. It's a fan film, so they probably, I don't know where they got it. They probably found somebody who was, making this and bringing it to cons or something. And that's how it usually happens. I don't know. I have no idea how they got it. But it looked a little too military. It did look a little too military-esque for me. A little too Nolan Tumbler-esque for me. Didn't like that. Like the touches that they put to really make it bat-like, but didn't like that. Hated, absolutely hated in every way, every single thing about that bat suit. That is not Batman. That's not Batman's suit. That was absolutely 100% taken from Batfleck. Ben Affleck's not Batman, his murder man, basically, in Snyder's movies. There are a couple little differences, obviously. It did look a little bit more armored on the chest versus just the duct tape, funky looking suit that Affleck wears. But what do I mean by that? So what I mean by that, first of all, the fact that it was just so completely black. It was totally black. There was not even any, here's the problem. A full black suit can work. It's not preferable, but the reason why the black suit in Tim Burton's films worked, again, not preferable. Should I, in a million years, I'll never stop saying that it should be the at least black and gray, if not blue and gray suit. But the reason that a black suit can work is if you give it enough touches to truly make it look like a bat costume. And you have to add some color in it somewhere. I didn't even like Nolan's bat suit. That's not Batman's. That's a paramilitary armor with some very subtle little ear nubs on it that maybe you can think could possibly be the likeness of a bat. More often than not, it looks like a cat. At least Nolan's ears were proper length. They were sort of the shortest you could make them, was Nolan's ears, but they were proper bat ears, Batfleck's ears, they're just nubs. They're like, that might as well be a Catman. That wasn't Batman. That was Catman, Didn't like that about Adam West's suit. And it's kind of silly to compare Adam West because that's just a 100% different take on Batman. But at least Adam West's suit with those silly little tiny nubs on his side of his cowl, he did at least have prominent fins and a cape, that looked like, a bat and everything like that. So, but the problem with this Batman suit is it's all black, very short ears. If you're in the right lighting, you can sort of see a stencil of a bat on the chest, but it's so dark. And in the cape, it's so long too. You don't even really see the fins on the bottom of the cape that he just looks like a paramilitary vigilante. This is the Punisher. This is the Punisher in full body gear. In terms of the look, not the character. I'm just talking about the appearance, the costume here. I did not like that bat suit at all. Also, they took that nod from Batfleck's horrible suit, which makes the cowl itself just like angry. Like they put these, heavy brow lines into the cowl. So he's just like, he's growling at it, No, that's not at all. That suit is garbage. And the person who designed that suit, thinking that suit was a proper link to the kind of story they're trying to tell, was nope. Horrible decision. Horrible fail. Horrible fail. The guy playing Batman did a great job. This isn't a commentary on him either. This is a commentary on the suit and how he looked. His voice, I thought, was good. That was great. Very, very fine. But if you're going to have an all black suit, like I said, the reason Tim Burton's looked good is because you had the high ears. Clearly, that's a bat head. You had the fins. You had the yellow oval. It's not just full black head to toe. You had some sort of yellow in there to signify safety. This isn't just a shadow coming from the night to terrify people. It is a hero coming to save people. You need that yellow in there somewhere, somehow, somewhere. Even the Nolan, which isn't enough, but I'm just saying, even the Nolan bat suit did have a little hint of gold in the belt, at least, not really yellow, proper yellow, but a little hint of gold, So this suit, garbage, horrible suit, horrible fail. Let me go ahead and talk about the thing that Batman did now, which is not in keeping with the iconic Batman. And this might be, it happens in the very beginning. So, it might be considered by some a little bit of a spoiler. I don't really think it is. It happens in the very beginning. But he, at one point, he's saving the girl, as I mentioned. It opens up with him saving one of Mad Hatter's victims from the Mad Hatter. So he takes out the thugs, and that's fine. It's really cool fight scenes too. I forgot to mention that when I was saying the good things about it. Really cool fight scenes where he's taking out the thugs in the room. It was one of the bad things about Nolan's fight scenes was the camera never stayed on Batman. We never actually got to see the fighting. It would just cut away, or it was just you just heard it more or saw some shadows flashing more than you saw actual fighting. And this didn't do that. This was well choreographed fighting. It did look like Batman knew his stuff. He was incapacitating these villains, these thugs. Very well done. I thought that was good. Then Mad Hatter runs in the room and he tries to take out Mad Hatter. He's telling Mad Hatter, he's got him at this point. Mad Hatter's laying on the floor before Batman. He's completely powerless. Batman's won. Batman has won. But he says something about his Alices and how they always enjoy it or whatever. And then Batman, in a moment of anger, stomps on him. It almost looks like he's stomping on his crotch at first. It truly does look like that. But then you kind of realize, oh, it must have been his knee or something, because you hear the crunching and you hear it's a 100% just gratuitous Zack Snyder-like moment where he just crushes the guy's knee out of just anger. There was no reason to do that. It was just punishing him. You're a villain. I'm going to punish you now. This has nothing. What I'm doing to you now does not save anybody. It does not stop you from doing anything. I'm just going to sadistically cause you pain and torture you. It was pathetic. It was enough to make me really honestly want to turn it off right then and there. I didn't, because I decided I wanted to give a proper review on it. But that was just garbage. Whoever decided that, a lot of people, you're going to lose them right there. You lost me. I can't across the board recommend this to anyone because of that ridiculous, stupid moment that somebody decided to put in there. That's not Batman. That's Murder Man. That's Zack Snyder's Batman. And Zack Snyder's Batman is not in any way linked to any kind of valid interpretation of the character. So the problem with that too is you might think, oh, it's just your taste. No, it even affects the artistic integrity of the film as its own dying is easy fan film, because you think about all of the little touches they brought in from the comics. Even, for example, when you see Batman walking through Arkham Asylum and he's walking to the Joker's cell, I won't give you any of the plot points, but he's walking to the Joker's cell, and that's when you see him pass the cells of a lot of the other villains. And they're great. I mean, that's Poison Ivy. That's Harley Quinn. That's the Riddler. That's Zsasz. You even see Victor Zsasz at one point and a couple others. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. And they are truly the characters from the comics, or at least the Batman Arkham, games, comic tie-in, that kind of, they're comic characters on the screen. You can definitely tell that. They're colorful. They have color. They're acting out in very sort of melodramatic ways and whatever. They're being their character. But then whenever the camera shoots back to our Batman, there's nothing comic booky about him. He's just a vigilante who's in some armor walking down a hallway. There's nothing theatrical about our Batman. And if it's a comic book movie, yes, there needs to be something theatrical about our hero. There's a reason we go to comics, not just open a book to, read as a novel or open a documentary or whatever. We want to see a comic book superhero. And this is something that Nolan started it, and then Snyder just drove it into the ground, this stupid realistic take, and stuff like that. It's dumb. So the little touches like that, the little touches of Snyder's influence on it really does conflict harshly with the good comic book influenced aspects of it. That's visual. I gave you an aesthetic example of that. Now let me give you with trying not to spoil anything, I'll give you an example of the plot. I already told you when he brutally smashes the Mad Hatter's knee or whatever it is, just crushes it, that's just torture. That's just torture. Batman never does that and should never do that. But I'm already hearing people say this stupid argument. Yeah, but if you just get to the end, I mean, no, that's not fun right there in the beginning. But if you just get to the end, oh man, it really is, it's just really, yes, it is a wonderful plot point in the end, how Batman cares about the victims and victims' families, and how he does everything he can to save them. It's a wonderful plot point. I love how they wrap that up, but it's completely nullified because you've already seen us show Batman torture. This is one thing a lot of people don't get. Some people still think Batman should kill, and those people are just lost forever. They don't want Batman. They want the Punisher with some nubs on his helmet. That's all they want. That's not Batman. But there are some people who think, yeah, Batman shouldn't kill, but he is very brutal. He is very brutal. He's not afraid at all of doing serious physical harm to people who are in his way of saving innocence. Okay, if you're threatening another's life, if you're in his way, like actively trying to oppose him of saving an innocent victim, then yeah, you are fair game. Whatever happens to you happens to you. He's not going to kill you, but he'll cause whatever harm he has to. But he doesn't do it for delight. He doesn't do it out of revenge, and he doesn't do it gratuitously in any way. And that crushing Jervis Tech, Mad Hatter, that was Snyder's horror. That was Snyder's torture that he had Batman do, torturing victims and whatnot. It was garbage. So if you've got a Batman who already does that, is it really that big? Like, what does it mean later on when you talk about his one rule of not killing? So you're already willing to torture people and maim people. What is it? Oh, but I won't kill. Is it really that? Is there really that much of a space in between torturing sadistically and not killing? That's what a lot of people don't understand. They're like, oh, he can be brutal. He can do this and that. Even some of the Arkham games went too far with that, I think. He's not above doing damage when he needs to do damage to save somebody, but he's not going to sadistically torture somebody. It's a good example in writing of such a tiny thing. I mean, there's that one thing he does to Jervis Tech. It's very short in comparison to the whole film, and you might think, seriously, that's what killed it for you? Yes, because it's bad writing. You made the character do something that you just thought was really cool, but because you did that, you established something in his character that doesn't match the arc you put him on. So by the end of it, as cool as that idea is, what it does to him in the end, it's unearned. It's unearned because you already betrayed it in the beginning when he was supposed to already be thinking along these lines. So no, I do not give Batman Dying Is Easy a thumbs up. I do not recommend it as an iconic Batman piece, and it's really sad because all of that is because of the one behavior and then the horrible Batsuit, but they're linked and it's big. It's profound enough of an issue to kill the character. Now, it's a great source of some cool, iconic Batman ideas. If you want to watch it, if you're writing your own kind of stuff or you're writing your own Batman fanfic or whatever, and you want to write it for some really cool, watch it, mine it for some cool ideas, great. Yeah. But no, it's an example of one of the dangers that I've been pointing out of Batman and Superman and the DC universe. All of these people who try to defend the Snyder cut and try to say, oh, it's just give us our version. You can't, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not just your version. It's another pollution out there in the public consciousness where people start to think, oh, it's just all any old version of the character, whatever you like. So then somebody like Bat in the Sun tries to synthesize all of the different versions of the character to try and give you sort of a concrete, iconic version. And it's proof that you take that little bit from Snyder, it doesn't synthesize well. It doesn't work well with all the other versions you take. You end up with this monstrosity that doesn't make sense logically, character arc wise. It's not integral to the character. He's behaving irrationally. It doesn't match. It doesn't fit. That's why you can't just have any old version, and all these people say, you like watch what you want and like what you like, man. I just block those people immediately. They're stupid, and then there's a level of stupid or just trolling or whatever it is that you just like, I can't waste my time trying to explain this to people over and over and over and over again. We got to move on and graduate to a next level, folks. There's no such thing as, it's just whatever anybody likes and versions. No, that does harm to the characters. It does harm to the mythologies. So no, I don't recommend Batman Dying Is Easy, but I'll be the first to admit there's some wonderful things about it. If they ever edited that horrible part out, I could roll with the horrible Batsuit. I could roll with the unfortunate Batmobile if he didn't act the way he acted, So yeah, that's my review on Batman Dying Is Easy. Bat in the Sun Productions does do great work. I hope they step it up next time and stop allowing all these garbage influences to seep into their tellings of the character. But we'll see. We'll see. So that's all for now. That's all for the review. I'll take any questions if I have any in here, and then I'll bring Al in, and we'll go ahead and start our Star Wars book study. Let me check, see where he's tagged me here. Oh, Crispy, you're a fellow bassist too. I think you mentioned that one time when I was talking about bass. Warwick Bay. Hey, those are cool too. Matthew Flynn, welcome. Wolfton Media, Autobot Megatron. Yeah, the DCAU Batman Batmobile, that was good. The Arkham Asylum Batmobile was really cool. I agree, Autobot Megatron. That was cool. You didn't get to play it or anything in the game, but it was very cool. Yep. Schooner Tuna says they cannot seem to stop having Batman punish his villains. I know. And see, this is an example of how all of those little, it's just a little version, whatever you want, they've polluted, they've poisoned the public consciousness in terms of who Batman really is. People don't know who the character is anymore. You know, as Fanman's pointed out, he is a dark knight. He's a dark knight. That means he's dark, but he's also a knight with all the chivalry, with all of the I'm going to save the innocent, protect the innocent that entails. People think knight is spelled Night, and they just, oh, the darkness, the darkness, the dark. No, it's Knight. You know, it's a big difference. Let's see, Matthew Flynn says, does this apply to Batman after Jason Todd died, before Tim Drake became his sidekick? Yeah, what part do you mean? He is supposed to be a little more brutal in his attacks at that point because Tim Drake, as a fan of Batman, that's why that story is so wonderful, because it's kind of a meta story, a meta Batman story where a fan is stepping in and saying, Batman, you need Robin. You're becoming a little too dark right now. You're starting to be a little too brutal. He's still not killing, and he's not punishing people for just the whole hay of it or whatever, you know, or torturing people for the hay of it. But you know, yeah, he's a little dark, and he needs needs a Robin in his life to be brought back, and Tim Drake becomes that Robin. That's why Tim Drake's my favorite Robin and one of my favorite comic book characters. Period. If you give me a top 5, he'd definitely be in there. Let's see. Oh yeah, you're right about Megatron. They you don't actually get to control the Batmobile as it's driving to the asylum, but you do see it. You do the cutscene. You see Batman in the Batmobile driving to the asylum. Yeah, that was wonderful. Absolutely. All right. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and bring Big Al in, and we'll go ahead and do our book studies. Let me send him the link. Open that up. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off my camera for a second and go mute just for a second. And while he's coming in, I'm going to go grab a water, and then we'll come back. So I'll put on the screen there to back in a minute or something like that to give me a moment. But then we'll be ready to go. So let me send him that link. Okay, and then let me see. There we go. All right, so I'll be back in just a moment with Big Al. We'll go ahead and start our Star Wars book study. All right, folks. So Welcome to the Star Wars EU book study as we open up tonight with Star Wars Red Harvest. It's going to be a sweet look at the first 6 chapters anyway. I think I said first 5 chapters on the thumbnail. I forgot that we actually said 6 because that 6 chapters is like a page and a half. No worries, we'll cover that too. But with me as always is my trusty TA here, Mr. Welcome Al Baca.
I'm not going to do the voice tonight. Hello.
I hear you. Some days the throat's just not ready for it, right?
It's too hot.
Oh, is it hot up there?
I've been sweating all day.
It was a hot snap. It was a little warmer around these parts than it should have been.
It's very balmy here on Kashyyyk.
It's supposed to be like 10 degrees cooler tomorrow. I hope we do get it because remember last year we actually did get a proper spring. It didn't just jump to summer swelter immediately like it does in these because you and I, even though we're a good deal apart, we're still in the same region-ish,
Yeah.
And I'm hoping
it's supposed to be
we
40.
have it again this season.
It's supposed to be 40 like Monday.
Really? I didn't go that far.
In the 40s, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
even
40s.
Yeah. 40s are nice. And dry. Need that low humidity.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So this is kind of a momentous Star Wars EU study on the Professor Geek channel because, as people know, I don't particularly like horror. I'm just not a fan of it. It's not my thing. Unless it's like a gothic, I like monster stories, sort of a gothic tale like that or something. But I really don't like tales that dwell in the nihilistic, or that's like the unhappy ending and then the monster kills everybody. Ah ha ha. Wasn't everybody disturbed? Isn't that great? No, I don't like that kind of stuff. But I heard that, first of all, the first zombie novel in the Star Wars EU was actually Death Troopers. So that's one thing to think about as we read Star Wars Red Harvest. And I'll go through as I'm talking about it here and point out some things that most readers are expected to kind of know, given the Old Republic or even Death Troopers or whatever. So there are some things that, you might need to know just to help your experience with it a little bit. But for the most part, it's not bad. So Death Troopers takes place much later, like centuries or so later when we actually have Stormtroopers. Red Harvest is in the Old Republic era, and this was a prequel that Joe Scriber wrote after he wrote Death Troopers. So it's a prequel. Some of the causes for the zombie stuff that's going on in this book do kind of carry over and play into Death Troopers. So just connecting it there. But general perception, general reaction. Now you've just read those first 6 chapters. What'd you think?
It's very well. One, it's still kind of odd because everyone is so new.
Mm-hmm.
When you're reading something in the Star Wars universe and you don't recognize a name or a place, it's like I said, this is a whole new. You can say it's within the universe, but this is a whole new time and place and concept.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I think the idea of basically it's like a Sith Academy, right?
Yeah.
I like that idea because I'm thinking of a school totally filled with Slytherin.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have your real nasty ones like the one guy.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have those that are not quite up to par, like poor little Wim. Wim Nichter.
Yeah.
Poor fella.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Like I said, still don't have my footing in it. Still a few things not quite sure about. Still try. So basically, don't throw me any.
Oh, no, I won't. No. Well, I'm glad that you're coming at from that perspective because a lot of people who aren't EU fans aren't EU gamers because, like I said, the Old Republic era is something that you would need to know a little something about. So it's new to you, and that's logical that it would be new to you. But yeah, let me just give you kind of a brief 10-second, like $2 tour here of the Star Wars timeline. So if you watch the movies and the main kind of canon there, the prequels and original trilogy, you know that Sith, there's the rule of 2. There can be only 2, a master and an apprentice, because Sith will always try and stab each other in the back, always trying to betray each other. So only 2 at a time, and the EU stretches that a little bit because you do at the same time have the Emperor and Darth Vader themselves kind of training acolytes, not really full-blown Sith, but acolytes at different times for different purposes and whatnot. But the before that, the Sith was an actual empire. I mean, the background of the Sith is that it was a group of Jedi who broke off from the Jedi used to be about a balance, both dark and light. The
Well,
Jedi. Go ahead.
would you consider it more like a religious order rather than a like a more of like what's an oligarchy as opposed to
No,
an imperial format?
actually, no. It really is truly an empire.
Okay,
So you had this group of Jedi who broke off from the Jedi who were, all about balance. They just wanted to focus on the dark side. So to fight that, you had the Jedi who were remaining true to the Republic were dipping into the light side to fight against them, and that's how that break eventually happened. There's a lot more to it. I'm just giving you the $2 tour. Don't scream at me if you're a EU fan out there, But those Jedi who went to the dark side, they fled. They went off to a different part of the galaxy. They settled on this planet where they actually found Sith alien race, the alien race of Sith, like the red with the chin, tentacles and stuff like that. And they end up intermixing with them to where that Sith race became sort of a predominant one, but eventually humans, anyway, they became an empire of themselves out there in the dark. During the Knights of, so they became a whole big empire. They had an actual emperors and a Senate council or whatever, the Dark Council and stuff like that. They had all of that there. So they became an actual empire. And then through some goings on in the comics and games later, they came back and attacked the Republic, and then there was this massive wars that were going on there in the Old Republic. So that's basically where we're at here. There's a war still going on between Jedi and Sith even this moment. So this planet, I forget. Do you remember the planet's name, Al? I forget that this academy's on.
Like begin with an M or something.
Yeah, it's not Korriban. It's not any of the big ones. It's just this little planet that is off to the side where this academy is to train Sith warriors.
Like something weird like Mardu or something like that.
Yeah, it's just my mind's blanking right now. And of course, I can't find it as I'm looking through it. But Al's right, and I love Al's characterization. It's like a Slytherin academy, is a nice way of putting it. Because even as I just said, the eventually Darth Bane and the rule of two is because Sith will always try to stab each other in the back. Well, that's what we see here in this academy. The students killing each other, trying to get dirt on each other. Even the teachers, even the faculty are going to, just stab each other in the back every which way they can. So it's not a place you can fill up so much clout or security.
It's like a gigantic game of tag, and last one standing is the emperor kind of. I mean, it's very it's almost like Imperial Rome that way. Everybody's kind of gunning for power, and the strong will eventually eat the weak.
Yep, exactly.
Which is exactly what happened to poor little Nictor guy.
Poor little Nictor. Yeah, one last thing I'll say by way of introduction, and then we'll talk about chapter to chapter. And I don't think it's going to take us very long because these are short chapters, but I wanted to have a time to open up and prep the novel. But these 6 chapters, one of the things that Al said to me you didn't say it just now, but you did say it the other day when I was asking you your thoughts on it. I was like, who's the good guy? I don't know who to root for. Like everybody's horrible.
Yeah, it's like, okay, they're all Sith. Who am I rooting for right now? I'm assuming, I don't like that word because everybody makes a joke now. I'm assuming that we have yet to meet the protagonist, the person who is supposed to be the savior and all, the nice guy. Yeah, it can't be a Sith. Well, I mean, it could be a Sith, but it would be kind of weird.
We are going to meet her. Her name's Hestizo Trace, and that's pretty much like the first name you hear in the next chapter. So I'm not spoiling anything for you. But she's a Jedi. So we do have a good guy. We do have a few people to root for. We do have some good guys, and we have some sort of in between that you might root for. So it's actually a really well fleshed out cast. But as Al said, I mean, the first 6 chapters, it's nothing but these horrible people doing horrible things. So on the one hand, go ahead.
It's 3645 BBY, so before the Battle of Yavin.
Yeah, that's Old Republic. Yeah,
quite a bit in the past.
Exactly. Yeah. So on the one hand, you might think, well, if you're not even going to introduce your protagonist that far into the book, that's a mark against it in terms of good writing. And I agree. The reason I might give a pass to this, though, is because primarily the readers he's going to be going for are those who've already read Death Troopers and Old Republic fans anyway, who've reading this book in conjunction or just coming out again, tying it into the games or whatnot. And they want to know first and foremost, before they even care about the characters so much, how does this book tie into Death Troopers? How does this book, like, so in terms of setting, in terms of some of the stuff they're using and whatnot, also, how does this book tie into the Old Republic era and the things that are going on there and stuff like that? I don't give it a full pass. We should have had a little bit of main characters introduced earlier, but it sets up atmosphere. Now, the question I had for Al and for the chat is, I don't read horror unless it was this or that. Well, I just don't read horror. And Stephen King doesn't do this. Stephen King's very character driven, so he likes to start with his main characters right away into their heads. Is it common in horror to begin with this much atmosphere, this much bad things going on before you're really even introduced to your main characters who you're going to follow? Is that something that's done in sort of Lovecraftian kind of inspired horror, or is it just unique to this?
I'm not really big into the Lovecraftian as much as I like a good haunt gothic kind of slow. I like a slow burn or a found footage kind of guy.
Yeah.
Or I'm also a sucker for a Bigfoot movie, but I mean, it can happen where it starts out on some like setting up that there's some evil somewhere, and then like the good guys come in a little bit later. And they like to kind of set the tone as like, yes, this is a horror. It's not just going to be about a bunch of hot girls on a vacation.
Yeah. So there's
well, I mean, like take Jaws. First thing you see, girl gets eaten by a shark.
That's true.
Pretty much sets the tone.
Yeah. So it is. Yeah, you should get me think along those lines. You're right. Yeah. So atmosphere. I mean, to some degree, you might not be able to argue that you should have 6 chapters worth of it, but you do need to establish atmosphere. You want to make the audience on edge and make them understand that this is a horror work right from the get-go before you even worry about all the time introducing the main characters. Now, the other Star Wars Old Republic books, this isn't something that's natural to those books. I've read all of the Old Republic novels and tie-ins online and whatnot, and they are not, they don't often do this. This is unique to Red Harvest book. But let me see. I did ask the chat, and Horizon Talker says, I've read a certain amount of Lovecraft. He tends to start with his protagonist and build atmosphere from there, given how much of his horror is about going insane. Yeah, he's kind of Poe-inspired, likes to get into the mind of the characters too. Yeah,
it really depends. Like I said, it depends on the style of the novel, the setting you're going for. Something like you could, like a good haunting story, you would have you would set up what happened. The death or the hanging or the tragedy, or sometimes you could just have the people coming into the house and then finding clues along the way. So it goes all over the place.
I like our friend Troopers here. He says it's basically he compares the planet to Korriban with Hoth Ice. So yeah, it's not Korriban. It's not like a capital center of the Sith at all. The planet is pretty much just for the Academy, but I forgot to mention, I'm glad he pointed out that it is a cold planet. It's winter. It's not like you automatically think Sith, fire, hot, red, but it's not that kind of planet at all. It's actually quite cold, as we'll see. That'll come into play later in the later chapters.
Well, and that actually is very appropriate as well.
For what?
They Sith seem to like extremes.
Oh yeah.
If it's not boiling hot lava, a good cold planet or a good rocky hot desert planet. Yeah, it's that kind of thing. Plus, well, this is the Catholic Bible Geek channel, so I'm not going to get in the whole.
This is Professor Geek. What are you talking about? Perceptions
of hell. Some people think it's like fire and brimstone. Others think of it as a cold, dark void of.
Oh yeah,
nothing.
No, that's fine. This is still Professor Geek. Hey, I am the Catholic Bible Geek, even though I'm also Professor Geek. And you're talking about mythological ideas of hell. So yeah, the Dante. Even with the fire, the chorus level of hell for Dante was freezing. Right, that's where Satan is often depicted as blue. If you look at some of the artwork, he's blue because he's that cold, away from any warmth. Yeah.
So, sorry to do a weird thing, but did you get the message on Messenger?
No.
I'm just going to say that. But yeah, like I said, with the with an alien planet. So you rarely ever see something interesting happening on a nice, lush, tropical locale. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes like some bitter cold place, or hot and something, or like cliffs. There's always the Star Wars universe is filled with the extreme. The indoor tall, big, gigantic trees.
Yeah. In the going step by step now, so we need atmosphere, and if you think about, you need to establish this is a work of horror.
Mm-hmm.
It's rough, and I don't like this kind of thing. It's not to my taste, but I appreciate that the EU is big enough to encompass this kind of book. And you do meet our poor Nictor in our first chapter.
Whim.
So,
or little Whim.
Yeah, he's just called Nictor later, though. In Lusk, even though Lusk has a first name too, there's Odacer Faustin was the instructor.
Rance.
Yeah, Rance Lusk. Yeah. So there's the idea here of we set up it's a dueling kind of a competition where somebody will step out and call you out for a duel, and to shirk that, to say no, is obviously shaming you, right out of the academy. Almost to lose is practically shaming you as well. Now Nictor is this little guy. Even though he's a Sith, you can't have your heart goes out to him, because he's not very powerful. He doesn't, even though he's there, so you can imagine maybe he wants to be there. He's not really like he's so out of his element there. He's not a Sith, even though he's there, he's a Sith. And this guy Lusk is a student who's just been at the top of all the competitions. Lusk is looked up to. He's admired. He takes out everybody. He's very vicious. He's very sadistic. And we have this horrifying moment in which Lusk is going around looking at who's going to call out, and his eyes settle on Nictor, poor little Nictor. And Nictor is like, what else can he do? He has to turn it down, and he'll just have to go with the shame. And he opens his mouth and he says, "I accept." And he's thinking, what did I just say?
Yeah.
What did I just say? So he steps forward.
For a split second, I thought he was like, but he's sucking it up. It's like, I'll take my lumps, and that'll be fine.
Yeah, you don't really know.
Nope.
Now they're not playing with actual lightsabers. These are sort of blades, kind of practice sabers, but they are actual blades.
They're like metal rods with little pinpoint things on them. At least that's the way I kind of picture them.
Yeah.
Almost like a taser baton.
And Nictor steps forward, and Nictor soon realizes he's not really in control of his actions. And he starts hearing these commands in his head. Lusk is mind controlling him, basically. And he does kind of parry a first swipe from Lusk, which I think is funny. The narrator said that's already past the expectations of the armor. They think he'd be dead in a minute. And eventually it goes back and forth for a few, but then eventually Nictor's facing his back to Lusk. Through one of his moves, Lusk is happily behind him, and Lusk holds his blade, and Lusk commands him. Nictor hears him command in his head, "Now back your neck into my blade." And Nictor has to do what he says. He's being controlled, so he starts to back his head. That's horrifying. He's feeling the blade. He's being made to do this. And Lusk eventually stops it, and he says, he stops it and goes. He's kind of made his point, you think. So poor Lusk is poor Nictor rather is he's gone. He's down for the count. He's shamed. He'll be shamed out of the community and everything like that. So that's our first little encounter, chapter 1. Pretty horrific. Sith are horrible.
And it is, like the way they describe it is it's painful, especially for me was reading it. The pain swelled, doubled back on itself, grew infinitely worse, shrieking through him, and some grim, instinctive part of him knew that he was seconds away from severing his own spinal cord, shorting out his brain and extinguishing all the remaining thought in that final instant of consciousness.
Yeah.
I heard. Yeah. Anytime someone mentions spinal cord, it makes me kind of go, ew.
Yeah, it's it's really well written. It's the prose is well written for horror. He's done that quite well.
And then I'm sorry, but in a great horror way, he literally curses them. And it's a great little foreshadow, I think. Curse you, Nictor thought. Curse every stinking one of you. I hope you all have to endure this torture or worse. I hope you each suffer like I am suffering now. I hope, and then of course he,
Yep.
breaks free.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, oh yeah, something bad.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I just thought that was very horror central.
It is. It's a good it's a foreshadow. Yeah. In chapter 2, we jump away from Nictor suddenly, and we jump to to these two characters, two other Sith students, and they're walking to the mess hall there. And Kendra is it's Jura and Kendra. Now Jura's the male, Kendra's the girl, right? Am I get that right? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. Because it's Ki and Dr. So Jura is sitting at a table, and they talk about just the atmosphere of this place. Even while you're eating, you just as fast as you can so you can get out of here because you're supposed to be out training. It's a Sith kind of idea there. So, but Jura finally gets. Can you turn your volume down just a little bit there, Al?
Oh, sorry, I forgot. But yeah, they said even time socializing was like a weakness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a weakness.
Yeah.
A couple of different Jedi, not Jedi, a couple of different Sith Academy students there approach Jura, and they tell him, "Did you hear Nictor is vanished? He's vanished. He's just nowhere." He says, "What do you mean? In the infirmary, getting his wounds looked at or whatever. He probably did. He could have killed himself. He could have gone anywhere." They said, "No, he's literally just vanished." And they're afraid because there's this rumor going on that the one of the professors, I forget the professor's name, one of the headmasters, Lord Scabrous. Yeah, great name for a Sith, Scabrous.
Yeah. They all have great names.
Yeah, is that he's off? The rumor is that he's abducting students to experiment on them or have his own way with them. Did you turn your volume down?
I thought, yeah, I did.
Okay, almost sounds worse now. So might just be the Wi-Fi or something, but usually that fixes it. Yeah, okay, that fixed it. Good.
Yeah,
I think. Anyway, so Juros is like, "Why are you telling me? I'm not. What am I going to do about this?" Well, Scopes is a Brak, and Skopik tells him you have to do it. And we find out that when Juros was a newbie there at the academy, one of the older students was going to try and assert dominance over Juros. Juros didn't. He snapped back. He wasn't having any, and he gets knocked out. Next thing he knows, Juros wakes up naked, tied to the bed, about to be tortured or something worse by this older student. Well, Skopik, this is a Brak, comes up behind the bully and just clocks him, knocks him out. And Juros is thinking, "Oh, great, somebody just saved me." Well, no, actually, Skopik has a holo recorder on him, so he records Juros there naked on the bed. And then he says, "Now, if you don't want anybody to see this, you're basically my biatch," throughout the academy years. So Skopik has something on Juros, and Skopik is ordering Juros to go look into this because it's concerning. If it is, we need to know. And he thinks that Juros is, equipped to do it. And it's a really neat little power struggle moment where Juros kind of has him up against the wall with his throat around, hands around. Go ahead.
Zabrak, that's like Darth Maul, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Zabrak,
Darth Maul was a Zabrak. Here it is. So Zabrak, Juro pushed back his chair. He stood up in a fluid motion, swinging one hand forward. He reached up and snapped his fingers tight around the Zabrak's throat, clamping down on the windpipe hard enough that he felt the cartilage pop. It happened so fast that despite the strength and weight discrepancy, Skopik was caught off guard, but only momentarily. When he spoke again, his voice was calm, almost casual and quiet enough that only Jura could hear him. So Jura's got him up against the wall with his throat and the cartilage popping. And then Skopik speaks to him very calmly. He says, "There's a saying on my home planet, Oscaroth, only a fool turns his back on an unpaid debt. You think about that." Skopik nodded slightly at Jura's arm. "Now, because you do still have some value to me, I'll allow you to remove your hand from my throat voluntarily and save face in front of our peers. But the next time I see you, you will tell me what you found out about the disappearances." So, these are Bracks. You got to look out for them. They are wicked.
They're all wicked so far.
There are some good ones. You meet some good ones in the Old Republic and stuff like that. But they're wicked looking too with those horns, and stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Zabrak are scary by nature.
Yeah. So Jura's outside. He's you see the anger that he has, for Skopik. So we've got some, even though we're setting atmosphere, he's also planting some seeds for some different tensions and relationships throughout what's going on there. So we know that Lusk is a terribly sadistic, dangerous bully. We know that Skopik and Juros have this kind of tension going between them because of this. So we're establishing things already. So that brings us
it's just Jorah.
Between him and Skopik. There's a tension there.
Yeah. No, it's just you put an S on the end of it.
Sorry, Juro. Yeah. Juro. Now, chapter 3, we go back to Nictor. What's been happening to poor Nictor? And this is good. Nictor was a victim, and then in the second chapter, we were introducing other characters, but you tie it together by the news, the revelation that Nictor is missing. So, chapter 3 is about the time you need to go back to him, and this it's pretty horrific. It's hard to even explain it. But he wakes up in this cage in which he can basically just sort of hunch forward. He thinks he's in the infirmary. The last conscious memory he has, he was in the infirmary. It's very cold. He ends up being in Lord Scabrous' laboratory, and he realizes that he's there naked. There's this horrible pain in his back because there's these tubes that are inserted into the vertebrae of his spine, of his back. I know. And he sees Lord Scabrous walk over, and he's talking. He's like, he wants to plead, he wants to beg, but he knows Lord Scabrous wouldn't even listen to him anyway. And it's so chilling the way he describes Lord Scabrous, because Lord Scabrous just walks around. He's just doing his experiment, and he's walking over. He's got this plant, this flower that he wants to drop in this tube that'll feed itself into Nictor's spine. And Nictor finally, is begging or whatever. And it says Lord Scabrous looked at Nictor as though seeing him for the first time. It was like, this is Sith to the extreme. The other people aren't even people to me. They're tools to use. Mm-hmm. And he tells Nictor that you're lucky, even though you're horrible, you'll never be a Sith warrior. You still may be of some use to me. So that, rejoice in that. I mean, it's crazy, creepy, and wicked. So then the pain. So he drops this thing in this flower in there. Then the pain he'd been enduring up until now became abruptly, horribly worse. It slammed through his body, gouging through every millimeter of his nerve endings, turning them white hot. Nictor arched forward and screamed. The pain owned him. He surrendered to it utterly. It became a vast, all-encompassing neutron star, and as it sucked him forward, he saw Scabrous watching him through the cage. The last thing Nictor saw before he blacked out was Scabrous turning away from him, swinging his arm across the long counter above the pump, sending the flowers and their vessels crashing to the floor. Okay, so something's happened. Nictor's going to black out here in a second, but Scabrous is very teed off. Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is a little bit more involved. We get a couple of bounty hunters that are on their way to the landing pad there, and they have something. They have a package for Lord Scabrous. We also do meet the guy who kind of mans the landing pad. He's like the mechanic. What's his name? Frode?
Purgus Frode.
Yeah, Purgus Frode. Yeah, Purgus Frode. All right, so he Purgus Frode's there manning it. He talks to these two bounty hunters. Lord Scabrous has an HK droid that's his personal sort of attaché. Now, this is one thing that if you're an Old Republic fan, or at least have played the Knights of the Old Republic, you would know that HK droids are actually assassin droids. They're not like C-3PO protocol droids. These are not the droids that you should have as your little personal assistants. They're actually assassin droids.
And HK, like hunter killer, basically.
Yeah. So
same thing for Terminator, I think. HK.
Does HK actually mean hunter killer?
I know it does in Terminator.
Oh, I don't know if it actually means that in Star Wars or not. I've never heard that.
Sounds appropriate.
Yeah. But he's actually an assassin droid, but he's acting just as an attaché. So that's enough to kind of clue you in that something's a little off there, But he's there to lead the bounty hunters over there. Now, the bounty hunters, there's the first guy who's a human, and then he has what's his name again? I'm always bad on these names. Scarl. No, Scarl is his partner.
Dranok.
Yeah, Dranok. All right, now Dranok is a human. Now his partner Scarl is a Nelvanian. Nelvanian is the alien race. For those of you who enjoyed the Clone Wars 2D series, this was the alien race that Anakin went to have his vision before he actually became a knight. When he went from Padawan to Jedi Knight, that blue race with the sort of muzzled faces and the black hair. I would say look it up, but oh my gosh, the furry community has latched onto the Nelvanians like you wouldn't believe. And there's some really creepy, spooky, weird art that pops up when you look up Nelvanian.
Oh dear.
It gets a little weird. But so he's got these two now.
What is it about? What is it about furry co-pilots?
I don't know. But Dranok is a little tired of splitting all the profits with Skarl, so he tells Skarl the Nelvanian to wait outside. Wait outside. I'll bring it down. This is safer. You can kind of wait and keep things, for protection wise. Make sure no one's jumping us or whatever. So Dranok goes up the tower. He's taken to the tower to Lord Scabrous, and it's really creepy. It's cold. He starts to smell this putrid smell, which kind of changes eventually to sort of a smell of roast meat. And he's like, oh, that's, he's hungry or whatever. He eventually sees Lord Scabrous, and you find out that he's been tasked to find this special flower, this black orchid. It's a special flower. The special orchid's enhanced with different properties. We'll find out why Lord Scabrous wants it a little later. But Lord Scabrous says, did you bring the orchid? And Dranok says, Dranok's looking at the floor, and he's looking at all the flowers that Scabrous has just turned over and crashed. So the idea is you're supposed to put together that Scabrous was trying this flower in this experiment with Nictar to see if it worked, but it didn't. Nictar blacked out instead of having whatever other result he wanted it to have on him. So that's why he got mad and he crashed all the flowers, because these clearly weren't the real black orchids. So now he's asking Dranok, did you bring the orchid? And now Dranok's seeing all the flowers in the ground, realizing that some of those look exactly like the one I brought him. Maybe this isn't a good idea. So he's trying to bluff. He says, where is it? A bluff then. The bounty hunter realized that was the only way. He had bluffed the way right out of the tight spots before. This would be no different. This is it, he said, manufactured brusqueness, holding up the open case to show its contents. The Murakami orchid, as you requested. Darth Scabrous says, did you come alone? And he says, my associate's waiting outside, Dranok said, just in case. Your associate? That's right. And you have brought no one else with you. Dranok scowled a little. Who else would I have brought? All right, this is key. We're going to find out later. This is how Scabrous knows that that's not the right orchid. And Scabrous basically says, you have failed me. What? This is the Murakami orchid. How can you tell? You haven't even looked at it. That is not the Murakami orchid. How can you tell? You haven't even looked at it. Dranok still felt himself taking a step back. Unruly. No, wait a second. Eventually, we hear, so Scabrous tells him this: despite your failure, your payment awaits you. Scabrous gestured behind him to an arched doorway that Dranok hadn't noticed before. The HK droid stepped out, pushing a cart with a huge silver tray on top. The droid wheeled the cart to the table and set down a plate and utensils in front of Dranok, along with the cup and a pitcher. Help yourself. This is meal. And he realizes this is the roast meat I've been smelling. Dranok shook his head. Whatever was underneath that lid of the silver tray, he wanted no part of it. And he realized now, with the merciless clarity of hindsight, how everything he'd done, taking the job, trusting the shady fence who had sold him the orchid, coming back up here alone, and all the links in some colossally ill-advised chain of disaster leading up to the penultimate moment of reckoning. Yet he could not stop his hand from stretching forward toward the platter. So he's being mind-controlled there by Scabrous. Reaching out, he lifts the lid. He stared at what lay underneath, sudden horror piling up inside his throat like a clogged siphon. It took less than a second to realize that the shaggy thing in front of him was the severed, stewed head of his partner, Skarl. The Nelvanian's mouth had been pried open wide enough to accommodate the ripe red Jakira fruit that had been thrust between its jaws, dead, boiled eyes gaping up at him with almost looked like an accusation.
At least they're taking pride in the presentation.
Gross. Oh, and Scabrous tells him, what's the problem? You were gonna betray him anyway, because Scabrous knew that from his mind, So it's like the bad guy gets his own. And Scabrous makes a deal with him. He says, tell you what, if you eat that entire head, I'll let you go. I'll even give you payment. I'll let you go. If you don't, you're dead. I mean, this is horror, right? This is straight up horror, and it's so uncomfortable, and he can't even stop his hand from grabbing the knife. I
like that every traitor makes a meal of his allies.
Yeah, every traitor makes a meal of his allies. He takes the knife. He tries to throw the knife at Scabrous. The knife didn't even get close to its intended target. Scabrous flicked his own hand in the bounty hunter's direction, a simple, almost offhand gesture, an act of disinterested dismissal, and Dranok felt his throat pinched shut. his windpipe siphoning down to a pinhole. A sharp and immediate weight seemed to have clamped down. Tears of panic flooded his eyes, and his heart started pounding as he thrashed frantically to his seat, blackness already closing in around the edges of his vision. All at once, everything seemed to be happening at a great distance away. As Scabrous released him, allowing him to slump down from the seat to the floor, the last thing Dranok heard was the sound of some kind of creature shuffling and breathing and making a noise that sounded oddly like laughter. Okay, so we leave Dranok in the hands of Scabrous. Scabrous didn't kill him, so he's still got this, you're going to have to eat this thing ahead of him, so we'll see what's going on there. Then chapter 5, go ahead. Do you have something to say about that?
I just get the Hannibal.
Yeah.
If you ever saw Hannibal when he made the guy eat his own brain?
No, I don't watch that. I didn't see that, but I know Hannibal Lecter, the character, does.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty.
Mm-hmm. So now chapter 5, we jump again to a different character, but again, this is how to do this. If you've got a large cast of characters like this, not all of them are you necessarily going to be following with an arc. Some of them you just need to know who they are. In a horror, obviously, you need to know if they get their own. That needs to, if you actually know the name of the person that dies, rather than just introducing and extra 3 gets their head cut off. Woo, you know what? You have to build some sort of familiarity with the audience if it's going to be more horrific. And this is Ra'at. We jump to another student there, Ra'at, who is training. Now, I didn't mention it before, but in the chapter 2, when Juros and Skopik are talking about the rumor of Lord Scabrous actually stealing students and experimenting on them, he says Ra'at is the one who broke this rumor. He told this rumor. So this is the Ra'at they're talking about. And Ra'at is training in this sort of this training field with this automated components, the walls and everything like that, kind of like the training room that the X-Men use a little bit. It's almost like that or something. But he
call it the pain pipe.
The pain pipe, yeah. And he calls to his master. He wants to train more. His master's telling him that's enough for today, but he wants to be as good as Lusk. And he keeps saying, "Did Lusk? Lusk trains all the time. I want to be as good as Lusk. I want to be as good as Lusk." And he actually does really well. He actually impresses Master Harakin. Harakin's his master, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Harakin. Actually impresses the master, and does a couple of moves to get away from these parts or whatever that impresses him. So right here, we're building a possible opponent to Lusk. So Lusk is like more powerful than anything we've seen as a student there. So we're building a possibly take on Lusk that wants to take on Lusk, in fact, to assert his dominance. Then we have Rat walking back to his dorm. As he's walking back to his dorm, he sees the light on in Lord Scabrous's tower there. He stepped over the main entrance, 2 sets of prints along the familiar tracks of the HK droid. Ra'at felt the requisite twinge of jealousy. The tracks in the snow meant that Lord Scabrous had brought visitors here very recently, and the Sith Lord had invited them into his inner sanctum. Well, you don't want to be that visitor, obviously, but Ra'at doesn't know that. And they had stepped inside. Ra'at, who had never been inside the tower and could only imagine its secrets, wondered who the visitors had been. Lusk? Nictor? One of the masters? Slipping off his glove, Rat placed one bare hand directly on the closed hatchway, imagining for a moment that he could feel the power pulsating out from inside, power that he would do anything to possess. Someday, he thought, I'll go through there myself. Until then, he would keep practicing. So a great, a little bit of eye there, wanting to go through those doors, and you're like, brother, you don't want anything to do with those doors if you knew what was going on in there. But it also sets up as a possible ally or opponent rather to Lusk. Chapter 6 is just 2 pages long. This just goes back to Frode. It's kind of tying up some loose ends, but it's good that we check in with Frode here. Frode's the mechanic, the guy who mans the landing pad and everything like that. The HK droid basically comes back and says those bounty hunters won't be coming back for their ship, and Frode's like, can I have it? I'll take it, so Frode takes it. So Frode is as a mechanic there, he's not really, he's Sith, he's part of the Sith Empire, but he's not in touch with the Force. He's not powerful. He's literally just the mechanic guy. He's just a mechanic who happens to grow up in the Sith Empire.
He's a drone.
Yeah.
But if you make yourself useful, having a skill that comes in handy.
Yeah. And so you kind of like Frode, he's not really, he's just there or whatever. Kind of the blue collar worker who gets pushed around by the higher ups a little bit, but just, whatever, just does his thing, knows his place. We find out that he's made little adjustments to the workstation area. He's got his own little, hollow projector set up, his hollow mags and stuff like that, and he does go ahead and start tearing apart the bounty hunter ship for salvage. He figures he could make something on it for salvage. And that wraps up our chapters tonight. Now, like I said, chapter 7, we finally get introduced to our main character, Hestizo Trace. And somebody said in the chat, I did see it, but I was going on something else, that no, that's no relation to Trace Rafa. Don't worry. Absolutely no relation. Hestizo Trace is her surname. And we'll meet her as our main character and find out how she comes into this. But as far as setting up the good atmosphere, great job. Really great job setting up atmosphere. I do like that. I would have liked to jump to our main character a little earlier. It's horrific, but at the same time, it's not 100% over the top from the start. Like that bit about eating your partner's head, that's gross, but we didn't actually see him eat the head, right? Mm-hmm. The part about backing onto a blade, that's horrific, but he stops him. Like that's good pacing. Some I don't read a lot of horror, but a general rule about writing in general is that you want to pace yourself. Don't throw out every eye attention getting thing you have in the opening. Work up to that kind of stuff. Work your action up. Pace up your action.
The old Hitchcock style.
Yeah. So that's our chapters for tonight. Do you have anything else to say about those, Al?
No, it'd be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, I'm afraid those fake plants are going to be a real troublemaker.
Well, he's looking for the right one. Who knows what this right one is or what it does? This real Murakami orchid. That's what he's going for.
Yeah, which kind of name harkens to if anybody's ever seen Werewolf of London. It's like the Mura, something. It's very similar sounding plant.
The wolfsbane, yeah,
but it's like begins with an M.
Yeah, it was actually supposed to. The novel was actually going to be called Black Orchid, but they changed it because people thought people might think that's a sweet little novel or something. Black Orchid. Oh, so they changed it to Red Harvest, which is like the blood harvest or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's our study for tonight, folks. Just kind of laying the groundwork, laying the introduction. Now, as far as next week, let's see, 6. Let me see. I like these little chunks. It's a short novel. We don't really need to blow through it in huge chunks.
See if I'm right.
How about we go through chapter 13?
Oh, darn. Overestimated.
Where were you at?
End of 15.
End of 15, yeah. How about chapter 13? So we're on chapter 6 now, chapter 6 through 13. Because I don't mind taking a little while to get through this. Let's go slow. Let's kind of really work through some of the atmospheric stuff that's in it,
So through 13, there we go.
Yeah, so next week will be chapter 6 through 13. And we'll keep rolling with it. It's not very long, like I said, but I do want to take our time with it because I kind of want to use this book to pace out before we start with the Darth Bane trilogy later, which I'll have to do a little more work to prep for and whatnot. So let me check our time. Yeah, good. All right, cool. So we can wrap up a little early tonight. These might run a little shorter. I don't know. I don't have a lot more to say about these kind of things, but people seem to enjoy it. So anything else you want to say about the book, Al, or anything?
No, pretty much hit on it. Like I said, it's I think it's in tune with how a horror story is paced. Like I said, it was just weird not knowing who the hero is yet.
Yeah.
Because at first I thought, well, maybe we root for Nictor because he seems to be like the abused. And then I was thinking, when they were talking about the Rance Lusk kid, if you've ever watched like the 80s kind of teen flick where you have the uppity rich kid who thinks he's better than everybody else, that's him.
Yeah.
It's like he'll have the sweater tied around his neck and driving daddy's Porsche. And that seems to be the personality type. Yeah,
and that's the thing for horror has got to be built on the familiar. You've got to be twisting what people feel some sort of level of security with. So something like an academy, well, yeah, you need to kind of play on some typical cliques and typical personality types or typical stereotypes, in a high school like, kind of thing. So yeah, the bully, the one who is just trying to survive, the one picked on, yeah, you got those there, and you do root for poor Nectar. You do root for him despite anything that's happening. So all right, so next week we'll do chapter 6 through 13. That's it for now. I will come back tomorrow night. I'm 99% sure tomorrow night at 9 p.m. I'll do my Van Halen cultural icons stream. Unless something happens, I haven't set up the stream yet, just in case something happens. I do have my daughter tomorrow night, but she should be well asleep at that point, well tucked away, so it should be okay. So
Alex Van Halen.
Al was trying to name the names of the Van Halen the other night, and he got them all until he even got both David Lee Roth and Sammy Hagar until he got to the drummer. I'm like, come on, that's easy.
I knew it was a Van Halen. I knew it was a Van Halen,
and I had to eventually. Of course, it was a Van Halen, and I had to eventually say, okay, it's an alphabet letter before Edward, before E, and then he's like, then I finally had to tell him it's A, and he's like, what did you say? You were saying Albert? Albrecht, Alphonse, Alfred. Like, it's Alex.
And then when I was like, oh, that's right. I just couldn't get it.
Yep. So that's check into that tomorrow because Fanman's not doing the Fantastic Friends tomorrow. So I figured maybe pop that stream in there. And then all kinds of things else is going on through the community. You can check into that. But is this your Saturday, Al, for the Quiet Man?
This is my Saturday, and we are doing the Quiet Man. And no fear, if you have Amazon, it is streaming on Amazon Prime. So no excuses if you have Amazon.
If you have Amazon. Exactly. All right. So that's on Al's channel.
It's a great film, 10 o'clock on Saturday. Please join me. It's a lot of fun. John Wayne, Maureen O'Hara. Come on. That's cinematic perfection right there. John Ford.
Yeah. So that's it. So thanks, folks, for hanging out with us. We'll be back next week with that next installment. But till next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the hero stories you love.
Bye, guys.